Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CMO Stories podcast, episode 23 from season 2. My name is Yuri Bilast, and I'm your podcast host. And today I'm so excited to be joined by Ethan. Ethan, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks, Yuri, for having me. This is wonderful to be here.
Yeah, Ethan, let me just introduce you for our listeners. Guys, if you don't know who Ethan is, well, he's a highly experienced TV or radio interviewee, keynote speaker, moderator, host, and also panelist in both English and French. And today we are going to speak in English, of course. Ethan, I know your French is really good. But Ethan, guys, is also the co-founder of the NFT Factory, a physical art gallery and trading center in Paris, democratizing and scaling European Web3. He is also the founding partner of Borderless Ventures and the director of the CryptoAssets. And also he's the host of a few podcasts himself. So Ethan, you're a really busy guy. You're completely in Web3, I see, in the blockchain. So I'm wondering, how does someone like you get interested in the blockchain space?
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. So my background is digital marketing. So the companies that we built were in between US, France, and Singapore in digital marketing and e-commerce. So I come from this similar background as your listeners may be, and you, with this focus on marketing and community and brand and building things in that way. And so that's what kind of got me into startup stuff and into this space in general. And then I moved to France 17 years ago, built another digital marketing and then e-commerce companies here in France, which after that, around 2013, we moved to Paris because we were living in the south of France, and we're kind of looking at what will be the next kind of thing to do. And so I was helping out advise some startups on international business development and marketing stuff. And one of my goals was to really get into maybe the investing side, and ended up in 2015 joining a fund in Hong Kong and Singapore as the managing partner for Europe. And the interesting thing with that company was it built corporate innovation accelerators across Southeast Asia as a way to source startup deal flow and to bring in global startups into the region. So we built a ton of accelerators with all the really big fintech brands across Southeast Asia, like DBS Bank and OCBC Bank and AIA Insurance and things like that. And I spent a couple years, basically half-time in Singapore, helping the team run the stuff that was based out of Singapore. And that was 2015, 16, 17, which was a great time in blockchain and crypto as an early space where we were working on things like cross-border remittance and things around the unbanked, which is in Southeast Asia is a considerable problem where people don't make enough money to be within the traditional banking and finance system. And so those are things that a lot of the crypto and blockchain solutions can address really, really well. And so that forced me to get into the space very early. I feel like I'm late because I got involved in 2015, but that's early from a lot of standards. And I would still tell people that we're early today, very much so, if people are just getting interested in Web3 and other things. So fast forward to now, and you mentioned Borderless Ventures, which is an advisory helping startups scale internationally between Europe and Southeast Asia and the US, and the CryptoAssets Institute, which is an advisory helping large corporates as well as funds, family offices, VC, things like that, deal with questions around the blockchain economy and Web3. And so it just grew from one thing into the next, but it's an extension of this idea I think building brand and community is what I really love about the Web3 space right now is how that is adapting and bringing kind of blockchain and tokenization to this utility of really helping brands connect with their community. And so that's something we can talk about a lot more, but there's an organic kind of path there that makes that happen. But then have been very involved just in crypto assets in general and tokenization since really 2015. And so there's a mixture of things there that make it all work.
It's funny that you said you thought that you are late, that you missed the boat or the train, like we say in Dutch or in French. But it's still early. It's so early. If I talk to people, they don't know what are you talking about with Web3 here. It was really funny. Just before our podcast recording here, my yoga teacher was on the phone, and I said, I'm going to have Ethan on the podcast. We will talk about it. Oh, I missed that boat. I said, no, you didn't miss that boat. The boat, the ship, or the boat, the train has even left yet for me. It's so early. And you doing so many things, Ethan. So I know you have also the NFT Factory. It's some of the activities. So can you tell us a bit, what is the NFT Factory and what inspired you to create something like that?
Sure. So the NFT Factory is a physical art gallery for digital art in the heart of Paris. It's 400 square meters, just across really the square from Centre Pompidou, which is the large contemporary art museum. I think it's the largest in the world, actually, but very much in the heart of Paris. And the idea, so I'm not at the origin of the project. I'm one of the co-founders, but the project really started about 1.5 years ago with two people, John Karp and Jean-Michel Payon. So John is very well known in the NFT space in French because he has the NFT Morning podcast, which is one of the largest French language podcasts in this space. He also has the NFC conference, which is the non-fungible conference in Lisbon. And Jean-Michel is the chief of staff at Ledger. So if you're in crypto, you've probably heard of Ledger and the little tiny wallets that people used for custody of their crypto and different things. So the conversations, I think, started around 1.5 years ago, basically with all these amazing things going on. And one of the questions we can maybe talk about again or a little bit later would be why France and how much of Web3 is actually in France. But because there was so much stuff already going on here, the conversation started with them and then branched out with other people in the ecosystem. How do we scale Web3 more intently as a group and not just individually with the companies? How do we take that and really intentionally build something even more impactful? And so there's 128 of us that are co-founders of the NFT Factory, and it's people like, Jean-Michel from Ledger, but you also have people from Sorare. You've got Sébastien Bourget from the Sandbox, which is one of the most important virtual reality, metaverse, things that we're going to be seeing. That's a fantastic thing. So Rare is sports tokenization and digital trading. All of this stuff tying into NFTs in the ways that we can talk about. Artifact, which is it's not the there's several artifact companies, but RKTFK is RTFKT, Artifact. Yeah, there it is. And so they just got bought by Nike last year, which they help brands basically move into the Web3 space. So all kinds of companies like that. There's journalists, there's developers, there's entrepreneurs, there are investors. It's really, there's a lot of artists. It's an interesting mix of people that co-founded this as a tool to basically democratize NFTs and Web3 by bringing people into a physical space that allows them to discover digital artwork, but then also discover all of the utility cases that we can talk about in Web3 that really have nothing to do with the visual or the art side of this. It's really a double thing. So it's called the NFT Factory. It's a digital art gallery. So when you come in, there's I think like 70 screens on the first floor. So it's just all screens everywhere. It's super cool. But it's also really a way for people to start to ask questions and learn about NFTs and Web3, help them get their wallet, which is a big goal of many of these large Web3 companies, is to expand the amount of people with wallets, especially Ethereum wallets, but others, whether it's Solana or Tezos or whatever, so that people can engage with things in Web3 whenever they discover them. Because right now the problem is they go to an event or they go to a pop-up store or they have a musician that wants to drop something or an artist, and most people don't actually have a wallet. So the first mission of the NFT Factory is this democratization piece, helping people understand it. Then we do a training piece where there's, the downstairs in the building is training rooms where we can help whether it's individuals or groups, whether it's regular people, whether it's corporates, basically to help them come along and understand more, and then in varying degrees go deeper and deeper into the specific subjects around this. And then I think some of the next goals, we launched our investment basically club between the founders in December. Was our first one. So we want to also really become an important actor in the kind of launchpad or acceleration of both artistic projects on the NFT side, and startups in the Web3 space. So it's a really interesting journey with some amazing people that are involved in it. That it's off to a great start. If you happen to come through Paris, Wednesday through Sunday, we're open.
Yeah, from Brussels to Paris, it's, by the Thalys, it's only 1.5 hours. So, hearing you and seeing you talk about that makes me want to go there. It's around the corner actually. For people in the US, it would be like really around the corner if you say this. So I'm in Belgium.
We've got so many Web3 events as well that have been in France or that are going to be there starting this year, that it will also, I think, become an important, basically just kind of the HQ of everything Web3 in France and eventually maybe a Western Europe, especially when people are in town for these events. But outside of that, really just helping scale up locally adoption and understanding of everything Web3.
Yeah. So therefore, you suggested the question, why France? Is this because you see this as a place where, lots of things happen in the Web3 world?
Well, it's a mixture of certain things. So before we talk about Web3 specifically, France is really just an amazing ecosystem today for building companies. As a startup founder, it's very hard, I think, for people, for founders to find a better place than France right now to start something. I tell people pretty much either go to France or go to Singapore, or whichever one you pick, you probably should do the other one as soon as you can, because France is in the French tech as a movement is a fantastic resource for helping companies start and scale up. There's a tremendous, very dense and deep ecosystem of experience and resources to help founders start and build things. An incredible amount of venture capital. The French tech ecosystem of France over the past several years has been the #1 destination of external venture capital in all of Europe. So while there's more venture capital based in the UK, more venture capital comes from outside into France than anywhere else in Europe. Fantastic things going on here. Tons of, last year, I think up until the end of 2021, we'd had 5 or 6 unicorns. Last year, we had another 23 unicorns that had finally grown up over the past 6, 7, 8 years. We'll have another bunch this year that scale, and probably maybe a decacorn or two that finally pops up out of that. Not that high-end side is what matters, but what it means is that there's just a lot of resources here that companies are able to use to scale up big companies. So that's the entrepreneurship side. The Web3 piece that makes that so interesting is well, when we look at a lot of the Web3 use cases outside of art, we would be looking at things like supply chain and logistics, trust and transparency in terms of counterfeit goods, things like ticketing for events. We could be looking at everything around digital identity. We can be looking at ID and digital document stuff when it relates to your academic degrees, or maybe your car registration. There's a video game industry. There are so many of the use cases outside of the art space that we can go into so many of those and have long discussions about each one. But what's interesting is France is already the home of so much of fashion, so much of art, so much of the video game industry is actually from or based or has significant teams here in Paris as well. So you've got several pieces there that between the luxury, the fashion, the food, the art, and video games, that's already a lot of the big items that we're addressing with utility in Web3. So not specifically necessarily an NFT of these things, but the fact that NFTs can be used to address problems that exist in those spaces by leveraging what the blockchain brings to these problems through NFTs in the Web3 space. So without going into all that in details, that's the idea of why I think France has really hit it so well. So we have Ledger in France, which is the largest of these custody kind of companies that helps people safeguard their crypto and digital assets. You've got Sorare, which is the largest of the sports Web3 companies, really, that are doing things like with football clubs and tokenizing everything around that. They've also are now into baseball and basketball in the U.S. You have things like the Sandbox, like I mentioned, which is one of the large metaverse plays. You've got all these other companies that are kind of around that are also super important that people might not have heard of. And again, 128 people from an ecosystem that came together to create the NFT Factory, and many of those people are in some of the most important companies in the world. And it just so happens that that's all based here in France.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Exclusible, is it also French company?
Yes, it sure is, yes.
It is. Yeah. So, I'm also into the metaverse. Probably, but you're also in Mark Schaefer's Rise community, and I'm the guy in that community that is organizing the metaverse events.
Oh, fun.
On spatial, we are gathering in Mark's penthouse, which is of course from Exclusible, and then we had like the art gallery that we did for marketers. But now I will be organizing for the third time the mini meta talks. So we are having little talks like TED Talks and connecting with people in the metaverse.
I love it. That's brilliant. And Mark is, Mark's one of the world's foremost marketing experts in general, with I think like a dozen books, and everything he says is just super valuable. He's amazing, and the fact that he's so into Web3 for its value that it can bring to community and to brands is I think also a sign that we're seeing people who are not crypto who are getting into this and realizing its value, and someone like Mark is definitely it. I know Mark because we both had our social tokens on Rally. He had the Rise token, I had my Ethan token. Rally is sadly really pretty much no more, but the adventure will continue. At least for me, I'm going to be porting that over to Solana and keeping the Ethan token alive. But more than anything on the NFT side, this idea of tokenizing community is super interesting, and he has very quickly become an expert in the space.
Yeah, I will also be helping me out actually to see what we will do next, because we have a Discord community which was linked, token gated by Swelling token. So we are now seeing how we will do that. So yeah, I'm actually one of the Web3 people in the community. I will also write a chapter in his new books about Web3 actually. Another person that also has his token on Rally, who has been on my podcast and who is also looking at Web3, is the content marketing guru, Joe Polizzi, if you know him.
Yeah, there's Joe, there's Brian Fanzo, if people are into NFTs, NFT 365 podcast and stuff. Yeah. Joe's amazing with Tilt and his community that he's built. It's it was a fantastic group of people, which it's a sign of the interest in and how amazing the possibilities are in this space, the kind of people that were attracted to Rally to want to build communities and to scale through Web3 in that space. Without going into the details really of what happened there, a lot of it is this idea of, we need Web3, but in order to get to Web3, we need Web2 right now. We need people still using their email accounts or still using their credit cards and things like that. And so this Web2 to Web3 bridge is still difficult. And I'm not sure that everything will ever be fully Web3 anyways, but again, this democratization idea of helping people to understand NFTs and tokenization and the Web3 stuff without actually getting into the technical details, helping them understand the utility of it and how the basic tools work without actually having to get going down a blockchain or crypto rabbit hole and getting too into the tech of it. That's not important. But what is necessary is that people understand enough. And so Rally was interesting because it made it easy, because you didn't have to understand any of that to get involved. But on the flip side, because it was centralized through Rally, that creates a weak point, which Web3 does not have, which is if something happens to the company like Rally, then you no longer have all of the tokenization behind it. And so, but it's fascinating to see the incredible communities that people like Mark and Brian and Joe and others have built, connecting the offline. A lot of what I do is speaking at large tech conferences or in workshops with corporates and things like that. So I have a really large LinkedIn community. Bringing those people into Web3 has been a challenge, but it's the fun challenge of how do you do that? How do you get people into this space who are potentially completely against everything crypto or blockchain, but once they really understand the tokenization side of this and the idea of the utility that can come from Web3 stuff, it's amazing to see the light bulbs go on and people get really excited about this. So yeah, a really fun group of people.
Yeah, let me tell you how it went for me, because I have the marketing background. Of course, I had an IT company in the past. I'm also, into an investment club, so I know a bit of everything that you need to know. But I was still not into Web3. And then I was at the social media marketing world, and Michael Stelzner said, okay, everyone gets an NFT here. And he was also organizing, a crypto business conference in San Diego. I was there too. And just by being with other marketers, looking at Web3, it made it easy for me to make the jump. Same on another thing, I was at the Web Summit, and I'm going there every year. And this year there was a lot to do about Web3. And I've been, asking every speaker that was talking about blockchain, Web3, do you want to come on my podcast? And you know what, Ethan? Everyone said yes. And I had like 10 podcast episodes at the Web Summit, which is
amazing.
A large tech conference. But, people, it's this community which helps you. Also, the thing was, we talked about Rally. There were some risks, of course, but it made it easy to onboard on Rally. It was really an easy way for me to be in Mark's community and get to know people and so on.
It was a great thing. I think for the people involved, it allowed them to create amazing communities they would not have otherwise created in the same way. And now they're continuing, like Mark and the others. They'll build that in new and different ways. Web Summit was really interesting because last year, now we're 2023, so 2 years ago really, but in 2021, Web Summit, the fintech stage, was sponsored by eToro, which is a large brokerage kind of website, but especially in the crypto space as well, but they also do stocks and other things. But to have them be the main sponsor of everything on the fintech stage was significant. And at Web Summit, there are 14 stages. It's huge. It's 70, 80,000 people. Those stages can be a couple thousand people on each one. I mean, it's a very big event with a tremendous amount of content. And what was interesting this year, for 2022, was I was one of the MCs for the fintech stage. I also spoke on a couple panels later on the crypto stage. But what was interesting this year was the fintech stage was only one day, and then the other 2 days of Web Summit, it became the crypto stage. So it wasn't even 3 days of fintech stage. But even more interesting was that on all the 14 stages, every day there were 2 or 3 things in Web3. So on the fashion stage, on the branding stage, on the SaaS stage, on the marketing and branding kind of idea. There's a stage for music. There's what else? There's so many different things. There's content. There's for content and creator economy stuff. Each one of those stages had dedicated subjects about how Web3 was specific to a topic related to that stage. And that was really, it wasn't the tipping point, but it was very clear that we are getting further and further into the reality and the utility of Web3 because everybody is talking about it within their space, not within the crypto and blockchain space. So very cool thing to be seen happening. I think next year, this year now, will be a huge peak in the adoption curve. I'm not sure we'll hit it this year with that really big kind of adoption moment, but I think either this year or next year, we're going to have a serious amount of people onboarding into the space, meaning that they have a wallet, that they're engaging with brands or individuals through NFTs and social tokens.
Right. Yeah, I think also one of the points is today we have this bear market. It will not last forever, but no, this is a good moment, I think, for people to get in and look, as you say, think about the utilities, think about everything that you can get, and not just looking at what is crypto, what is Bitcoin doing, because lots of people still seeing Web3 as this financial aspect of trading. It's so much more. Also with these NFTs, I'm also, it's a good moment now to get NFTs, but also look at the utilities that you get. So we talked about Joe Polizzi. I will also be at this CEX conference, but I bought, the NFT to get access. So I have access anyway. What the NFT does, it's just my ticket, and if it has some value, okay, that's good. So if people are now they're listening, we talked about these communities, events. Is that for you the best way to get involved, to make your feet wet, or to step into Web3, to go to conferences or to events, or do you have other suggestions?
I think definitely. Well, there's a learning curve here that we're still in the complex part of this, where with a lot of tech, I've been around tech long enough to remember having to explain to people how to do email and why they needed to create a Hotmail account in 1998. And it was like, yeah, but I could just send a letter or call them, and I don't understand it, and all the questions that come. We've had that all the way through, whether it was then e-commerce and payments, whether it was social media, whether it was mobile applications, all the different moments where technology has had significant shifts. We have a very similar period of time where it's rather technical. And in order to get involved, you have to master some of that technical piece before it evolves and matures in a way where the technical stuff really becomes no longer a big deal. Like, I mean, when iPhones first came out, people were like, what's an app and how do I install it and how do I do that? And now it's like, oh, I have to download that app? Okay. Like we get to a point where it just becomes a skill that people acquire and can kind of, on a community level, whether if they don't completely understand something, that somebody can help them understand it. Once we get to that kind of adoption, then the tech starts to disappear and people can just use technology for its specific benefit. Well, right now that's really where Web3 is at. It's in a bit of a technical place where, getting a wallet like MetaMask and installing it into your browser, creating the wallet then inside of that plugin, or getting a ledger, which is a more secure way to store your crypto, and understanding how to work with that. All these kind of things are a bit too technical right now for most people to want to get involved with. But once they have a reason to, once there's utility, meaning some brand that they want to interact with, some influencer, like you mentioned, Mark, with his NFTs, with the social tokens rather. You've got others like Joe with the social token. I mentioned the NFT 365 podcast with Brian Fanzo, and the fact that was running both on his social token but also with NFTs. People see a value, and then because they want the value, they figure out how to do the tech. And so I think what's really interesting then right now, community really helps with that. If people want to get involved in Web3, then they need to be around other people who already get it so they can drag them kind of along, which that can be virtual. So a lot of NFT stuff really took off when Clubhouse was a thing because everybody was stuck at home during quarantine and confinement. And so they were on Clubhouse and people figured out like, oh, well, here's how you create your MetaMask account and here's how you do your wallet and here's how you blah, blah, blah. And NFTs really took off because of that ability for people to kind of self-onboard through their group. And we're seeing that now in other ways. So it could be a virtual community, but also we're seeing more and more incredible offline stuff like events, and the fact that all of the major tech conferences now are getting more and more Web3. So it's not something where you really have to go to a crypto conference to kind of understand or learn from. This is something that we can get out of a lot of the traditional innovation conferences and that community. So that's also changing a lot. Anywhere that you can find a community that allows you to ask questions and learn is what I would say is where you get started. So that could be virtually if you don't have that around because you maybe don't live in a big city. If you do live in a big city, I'm sure there are plenty of meetups that people are going to be able to help you understand this. Always be careful when you're dealing with money about the advice that you take. So if it is virtual, if it is online, be careful the links you're clicking on and the people that you are trusting. You do need to find trusted sources. Ledger, for example, has their Ledger Academy, which is a fantastic tool to learn about crypto and how it works, and by an extension of that, then NFTs and the rest of tokenization. I think Brian's NFT 365 podcast is brilliant. Basically, he minted an NFT every single day for a year and explained why on the podcast every single day. And it was a great learning experience for him, but also everybody who got drug along with it through the process. That's a great place to go and learn. Really, it's by starting to ask questions of the right people. So the problem is, where do you find the right people? Well, just start looking. And I think, but whether it's between offline events or online stuff, find some trusted sources, because for whatever reason, you're able to extend trust basically because people are listening to you, or they're listening to Mark Schaefer, or they're listening to me, or they're listening to Brian or Joe or any of these other people. And whoever they then say you can trust to learn from, kind of go through those routes of, really figuring out who you can learn from. And then at that point, it really just becomes super passionate if you get into it. But there's really there's the digital collectible side of NFTs. And a lot of people will care absolutely nothing about that. Others will care only about that. So maybe you don't care anything at all about about all the little animal NFTs that you can buy and collect or things like that. And that's absolutely fine if you don't. Or maybe you're more into the digital art side, which is less about that kind of art and more about traditional art, but in a digital form. So there's so many ways you can get involved on that side. Well, then we're going to be seeing so many use cases. We already have this past year, but we'll see so many this year that really come along where people either don't realize they're using Web3 solutions or they do, but it's become so easy that it becomes much more just available. The last thing before I get back to another question from you, but a great example, I think, from last year was the Ed Sheeran concerts that were in London and this year in Paris and elsewhere, which basically when you bought your ticket, you had to give your phone number. That was the way you identified yourself with your ticket, wherever you bought your ticket from. But in order to get into the stadium, you actually had to download the Ed Sheeran app and use your telephone number to recover your ticket, to download your ticket. And so your ticket would then come down into the app and you'd have a QR code. And that QR code would scan you into the building, and it's the only way to get in. You couldn't get in. There was no paper tickets. There was nobody in the building that didn't get in unless they showed their phone and the QR code. Well, what's interesting is that was actually NFTs inside of the app. So it was kind of Web 2, but very much Web 3 as a mix. And why that's interesting is with one fell swoop, they destroyed ticket scalping for large concerts, because that NFT ticket, you're able to, well, because it's like a database system in any other way, you can scan and know that ticket has been used. And so, already you can track it. That already exists with a database. But what's really cool is you can allow people to resell the ticket as an NFT, but you could either block that, which you probably wouldn't want to, but you theoretically could, which means if you don't let anybody sell it, well, then is no ticket resale. So there's no ticket scalping. If you do let them resell it, well, people can resell, but maybe you cap the commission. So that concert, the tickets cost 60 to 80 euros. That's it. But they were selling on average before this ticketing solution for 350 euros. None of that money goes to the artist, and all of it makes the concerts more expensive for fans. So nobody likes that except the ticket scalpers. Well, what's cool here is because of an NFT-based ticketing solution, and we're going to see this with events in all kinds of really cool ways, it breaks the ticket scalping issue. And so you can allow people to resell, but you can cap the commission. So maybe, or the extra. So maybe you could say, well, you can sell it for 20% more, but that's it. You could even go so far as to take part of that or all of that extra value and send it back to the artist, or share it with the artist, or share it with the venue. Like there's all kinds of ways you can do that because of the crypto and the tokenization and the way that runs. But most importantly, what it does, it allows for fans who actually want to go to a concert to buy a ticket at a fair price, and for the artist to actually get paid the value of the tickets that are being sold, which they were in terms of the first sale. But the reality was these things were costing so much as tickets, but that wasn't actually benefiting anybody. So solutions like that, people are going to be seeing more and more of this year in a big way. And it's not necessarily completely Web3 by any means, but it is definitely on the road to Web3. And that kind of democratization is the stuff that will onboard people very quickly over the next couple of years. And so people are going to get into this without even realizing it. But if they do want to really dive in, find good communities and find people to trust and just dive in.
Yeah. People, if we don't use the word NFT, perhaps people or just talk about, an entrance ticket or something like that you can keep and that keeps the value, people will not realize. And as you say, actually we are more like 2.5, Web 2.5 before we are really going to Web 3 to get really the things going. Something that I was thinking of, because I will be writing a new book. I was thinking of why not make it an NFT, like, selling the NFT so that people can have the book and perhaps some other utilities, and then they can resell the book if they would want to, something like that. The only thing is that, will people that want to read the book, be ready because they don't have a wallet, and how can I make it easy? Another example is for my podcast, there is an NFT also for people that want to be in this podcast community, my CMO Stories community. By the way, they can get, if they are listening to this podcast, they can get a founding member NFT if they have the password uncut. And if not, they can just become a regular member.
I love it.
This is, Yeah, that's something that I'm doing. So you're talking about these communities and learning, and where are you going, Ethan, to learn? Are you going? Because what I'm doing is I'm listening to podcasts, I'm going on Twitter Spaces, I'm being in on Discord in Mars community and so on. Are those the things that you are doing yourself too, or are you doing other stuff?
Yeah, I would say, well, it's a learning process for everyone because this technology is being created as we speak. The new ways for it to work, new applications, new applications in the sense of new software tools, but also new applications in the sense of actually applying this to new problems and solving things. All of that's really being created right now, which is why, again, you're still early if you're just getting interested into Web3 and NFTs and even crypto at this point still. So by creating a community that you can learn from, whoever that is, that's the way you keep learning. So following people that are speaking a language that you understand and your values, whether it's on Twitter and on LinkedIn, on Instagram even, or TikTok and Snap. Right. There's a lot of great content happening on these places as well. Lots on YouTube. Again, be very careful whenever you get into this space, whether it's online influencer type content or if it's some of the crypto conferences, because there's also a lot of people out there that are just looking to try and make money, which I have no problem with people making money from any of this. But a lot of that can be kind of shilling projects that actually have no true value or are very kind of pump and dump where they get lots of people excited about it. They get lots of money and then the project just dies. So you do need to be careful about putting your money into things if you're wanting to get into the digital collectibles or the crypto side of this. But you can learn about it without putting a penny into it. Just like you can learn about stocks without actually having to buy stocks. Exactly. You can create fake portfolios. There's websites that let you do this where you can learn to trade and learn things. Well, you can do the same thing with NFTs where you can start learning about how all of this stuff works and without actually putting your money into it. And I would really recommend that people don't put any kind of money at all into NFTs or Web3 until they understand what they are doing, especially if they're at the very beginning and they don't really know who to trust from the outside, because there's tons of scams out there. Every pretty much month, there's another 2 or 3 people who create an account, Ethan Pierce, on Instagram or on Twitter or on Facebook, and then go and message everybody who follows my actual accounts and say, hey, how you doing? Haven't talked to you in a while. And if people don't really pay attention, they might think it's me. And then at some point, the conversation turns into, hey, I've got this really good investment thing, or I've got some crypto to send you if you just give me your wallet address or whatever. And so you do need to be careful about the kind of phishing kind of scams that are out there where people can really try and suck people into stuff, which is why I would not put any money into anything crypto or Web3 until you really understand what you're doing. And that is, again, by finding the right people to build community with and to learn from. I think you gave the good recipe. There's online content, there's offline content. Obviously, because this is moving so fast, most of the books in this space will be out of date pretty quickly. I think it's still great to have them, but the good news is that's the print version. Whereas now most authors are also publishing updates to the ebook version of their books so that they stay current. And with the NFTs that can come with those, or social tokens, whatever that you're using, the ability then to prove that you've bought a particular book, or that you've listened to a particular podcast, or that you've gone to a particular event or a training, and then to have that NFT that lets you basically sign into a website or a community and get access to extra stuff, more content, perks in some way, discounts on merchandise, special opportunities, whatever that might happen to be. But that's that community thing that Web3 is bringing, is it reduces the proximity between a brand or a creator and their public to zero, because whoever owns that NFT, even if YouTube were to disappear, well, all of your YouTube community disappears with it, unless you've managed to get a lot of those people who watch and follow your channel to also hold your NFT. Well, now they're actually connecting to other tools using the NFT, which means even if your YouTube goes away, or your Instagram goes away, or your TikTok goes away, or Twitter fails, which, imagine, could Twitter possibly fail? Who would have thought? If any of these things which we didn't think could happen could all of a sudden become no longer usable or trustworthy, the NFTs or social tokens will allow you a one-to-one direct relationship with a creator or a brand so that you can follow them to their other platforms where you can and stay connected. That community piece is super interesting, and it's the way that once you find one interesting person that you can trust and that you learn from, you'll immediately find others, and then you'll find more. And it's really, the answer to your question is simple and hard at the same time, because it might be hard to find the first one or two that you trust or that you really click with, but then you'll actually find too many. Then you'll actually there's just way too much to learn. And my podcast, when I was doing blockchain economy and basically doing news around everything enterprise blockchain and things like that, 3-4 years ago, I could do it once a week for an hour, and I would have to really work hard to find all the stuff, to find an hour's worth of really interesting subjects to talk about. Now, if I do it every day, I still have too much to pick from to talk about. So we are at an inflection point where there's just so much to learn, but that's where it's cool. But we're still early, but it's also a great time to get involved because everything is a lot clearer now. There's a lot more resources to learn from. And there's still many, many ways for people to find their niche and then contribute.
Right. Yeah, you're right. There are so many things to talk about. The time goes really fast. I had so many questions for you also. But you said, follow people that you trust. So if people want to follow you, where would you like to send them?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is probably where I'm the most connected, and so that's really easy. My name's super simple because there's only one of me that's spelled this way. It's ETHANPIERSE, because most people are spelled with a C. Right. And so if you find Ethan, when you start typing Ethan P.I. on pretty much any platform, you'll probably find me because I've got very large networks and several platforms. So I generally pop up pretty quickly from being connected to someone. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's probably the next best one. And then I'm kind of playing with, this year is the YouTube and Insta and TikTok challenge for me to really get more involved with short form content and the video content. So I'll be doing more stuff there, but anything I publish on those platforms will be pushed out to LinkedIn and Twitter. So that's always the good place to find me.
Right. We will be sure to put the right links with the right profiles in the show notes, Ethan. Of course, guys, as always, there will be an article which is a summary of everything we've been talking about. I think it was really inspiring. So thank you so much, Ethan.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, Yuri, for the invite. And if people have any questions, feel free to connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn and send me a message. I'm always happy to try and answer the things that I can. And if you happen to pass through Paris, do let me know. Again, Wednesday through Sunday is the opening hours, so we're closed on Monday, Tuesdays to come to the NFT Factory. Would always love for people to come and experience that as well. And then I speak at anywhere from 40 to 60 events a year. Pretty easily in terms of offline events. And so if you happen to see me speaking at an event, please do come say hi. Always great to connect.
Right. Be sure to meeting each other again this year, Ethan.
Yep.
If not in Paris, at one of the events, I will be sure to be visiting the NFT Factory, as said. And so, guys, if you're listening to this episode and you've got value out of it, and I'm sure you have, be sure to share this episode with your friends, with your colleagues, with other business owners, other people that are enthusiastic about Web3, so they can also learn, because sharing is caring. If you are not yet following the podcast CMO Stories, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And of course, I would like to see you back for the next episode. Bye.
Love it. Bye.